Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Office Hours. My name is Jared E. McFarland. I am a financial advisor in Washington State. My firm, McFarland Investors, helps Gen Z and pre-retirees commit to the investment process. I wanted to get on here today for this episode and talk about something I've been asked a lot, which is, hey, I want to get started investing. I want to journey into personal finance, improve my life there, but I don't necessarily know where to start. So I thought real quick I'd make a video with 10 items, right? 5 do's, 5 don'ts that anyone should pay attention to when starting their personal finance and investing journey. Before we get into it, as always, here is Barron's Finance and Investment Handbook for our investment term of the day. Compound interest. Interest earned on principal plus interest that was earned earlier. If 100 is deposited in a bank account at 10%, the depositor will be credited with 110 at the end of the first year and 121 at the end of the second year. That extra $1, which was earned on the $10 interest from the first year, is the compound interest. This example involves interest compounded annually. Interest can also be compounded on a daily, quarterly, half-yearly, or other basis. All right, I'm Jared McFarland. This is Office Hours. Let's get to it. So let's start with the don'ts. Number 1 item is don't spend more than you earn. Maybe you don't even know how much you're spending right now. That's why it's incredibly important to have a budget, to know exactly where each dollar is going. Maybe you've used a budgeting app before or an Excel spreadsheet, but have never really committed to it. I think the easiest way is just to use a notepad and your phone, go through your statements. That way you're writing it down because we remember better when we write things down. So I also made a video about budgeting and how it can make you a better investor. I'll link that down in the description below. And hopefully that can help you in setting and creating a budget for yourself. Budgeting is super important because it'll tell you exactly if you're spending more than you're earning. If you're spending more than you're earning, there's one place that goes. And that goes to our second item, number 2, which is bad debts. You don't want to carry bad debts. And bad debts most often come in the form of 2 things, auto debt and credit card debt. A really easy rule of thumb is if what you are going into debt to buy is losing value over time, then it's bad debt. So people finance things on their credit card like a gaming console, clothes. Those are not going to reasonably gain value over time. Cars, the same way, especially a new car, is going to depreciate somewhere between 10 to 15% right when you drive it off the lot, is going to carry a 6 or 7% interest rate. So you're going to be losing 20% in the first couple months of having that car. If you spend more than you earn, there's only one place that money can go, and that's a credit card. Credit cards, unfortunately, carry super high interest rates. The average American has somewhere between $6,000 and $7,000 in credit card debt, and currently APYs on a credit card are between 20 and 25%. An investment manager would have to earn that amount to keep your net worth on an even track. Let's say you have $6,000 in credit card debt at 20%, you would have to be investing $6,000, earning an annual return of 20% to not lose any net worth. If your investment return was only 10%, you would have to be investing $12,000 at 10% to keep your net worth roughly stable. And that's why credit card debt is so evil and can be such a hindrance to building net worth. There are very few investments over the long run that can get you 25% a year. Even Warren Buffett, even the greats, can't get 25% a year. So first thing you want to do is take a look at that high interest debt and get that paid down. Number 3 is life insurance policies. Life insurance is a complicated thing. It's made super complicated by a bunch of salesmen who sell things that you probably don't need. The only reason one should have life insurance is to replace their earned income for people who are dependent on that income, right? So this could be a family member who you help pay bills for. This could be a child. That's the most frequent use of life insurance, is if a parent were to die, it replaces the income that the child relies upon. That being said, for most people in their 20s who don't have children, who don't have people dependent for them, they probably don't need life insurance. Think about the people in your life who rely on you for money And if there aren't any, you don't need life insurance. Number 4 is things you can't understand. In the world of finance, there are a million different products from a million different people involving a million different companies. Often some of them are very complex. A really good rule of thumb for this is to think about it and be like, okay, could I explain how this works to a kindergartner in 2 sentences or less? If you can't, you probably don't want anything to do with it. If you're listening to your brother-in-law talk to you about how you're going to earn this much and then you're guaranteed this much, like that should be an immediate red flag. Number 5, don't, and I'm talking my own book here, is a financial planner. Most people in their 20s who are just getting started with the investment process don't need complicated software, they don't need complicated planning, they really just need to get started investing and not go into bad debt. In your 20s, you need to be investing aggressively, and then later in your life, as your financial situation gets more complex, the value add of working with a professional really comes in hand. As we get older, our financial situation becomes more complex and we're worth more. Between 20 and 30 is really just aggressively invest as much as you can. Now we're going to get into the do section, which is going to talk a little bit more about exactly how to do that investing. Number 1, do before any investing can be done is have an emergency fund. Life insurance is for the benefit of others, and emergency fund is for the benefit of you. A general rule of thumb is 6 months of living expenses. Once you go through that budgeting process, you can put a number on how much you reasonably expect to need for food, gas, rent, all those things during 6 months. That should be your first savings goal, is get that stocked up in a quickly accessible savings money market CD account, something like that. There's a saying that goes, never invest money you can't afford to lose, and that couldn't be more true. The emergency savings, or stability reserve as I call it with my clients sometimes, allows you to become a good investor because you won't have to sell your investments possibly at a loss if you need to raise capital. Number 2 is build credit. At some point in your life, you're going to want to purchase a pretty big asset. And in most cases, that's going to be a house. The cost of buying this big asset is going to be directly determined by your credit. Credit, as we know, is determined by the credit score. That influences the interest rate you're going to pay on pretty much everything. Credit cards, car loans, student loans, home loans. So when you think about credit, think about it being your ticket to entry to good rates. I've made a video on credit, how to get started building your credit and exactly how the credit system works, and some ways you can kind of finesse it, so to speak, in using your card and in talking to credit card companies, all that stuff. As a rule of thumb, 720 is kind of the low mark. Anything above that, you're going to receive really favorable rates. So that would be a good spot to shoot for right away. All right, now that you've got your budget figured out, you've paid down those credit cards, maybe you don't have credit card debt at all, you have your 6 months worth of savings, now it's time to actually dip your toes and enter the public markets. Now, not all accounts for investing are created alike. And so number 3 here is max out your government-sponsored retirement account. The tax code loves retirement savers, and so for that reason, there are a slew of different retirement vehicles that allow you to take preferable tax action in your investing. You might be inclined to open up Robinhood, open up a Coinbase account, all those kind of things, but that doesn't make sense at all for you in 40 years. The most basic of these that you're probably going to be offered is a 401k. It'll be offered through your employer, and they will likely match a certain amount of your contributions. I've made a waterfall bucket diagram for which of those powerful retirement accounts you want to fill up. I have that as part of my Gen Z financial blueprint, or really for anyone starting investing or embarking on their personal finance journey. It's free, and I will link it in the description. It also has 10 rules, expanding a little bit more, that you can follow to get yourself in an awesome position. I see this a lot, and it's really unfortunate because people assume that once they contribute to the retirement account, that's all they have to do. The retirement account is actually just a nice tax container, so to speak, for investments. You actually have to allocate investments inside the retirement account. And since you are young, you have the most important asset in the world, and that is time. When we have time in our investments, we can withstand volatility in the stock market. So we want to be what's called overweight risk assets. A risk asset is an asset that oscillates a lot. up and down like stocks, but over the long run, because of that volatility, you earn a greater rate of return. There's no such thing as free lunch. Risk and return are tied right at the hip. So when you're thinking about that at 20, like what's 60-year-old me gonna value more? Stability in my investments today or large gains in the future? Risk assets are, as we said, stocks, real estate, commodities, things like that. Risk off assets are going to be savings accounts, CDs, money market funds, bonds. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, it's important to assess what your risk tolerance is because you do want to sleep well at night. But as a rule of thumb, take more risk. Number 5, just like in anything else, have a goal as to where you want to be. The goal I most often tell people between 20 and 30 is you want to save 2 times your annual income into these powerful retirement accounts. First off, it's going to push you to invest really aggressively, really early. And that's a good thing for a couple reasons. By the time you've stacked these 2 years worth of salary in the investment account, say you're making $50K a year and you've invested $100K into your retirement accounts. If you want to make an extra $10,000 a year, you need 10% from your investments, or you need to cut 20% of your budget. Like, which one of those is going to be easier? That 2 times income is really the intersection, that point where your investments are going to do more for you than you could reasonably expect from cutting out a ton of expenses. And of course, we don't want you to live miserably either. The great thing is, over time, as people grow through their careers, they're going to make more and more money. So if you're accustomed to saving 30% of your income between 20 and 30, between 30 and 40, you can actually cut down how much you're investing and still invest the same notional dollar amount. If you're making $50K a year, investing $10,000 a year is 20% of your income. But if you're making $100K, it's only 10%. This allows you, as you get older, to basically invest and save less, but still be in an okay position just because you started from a really high savings rate. Of course, as you age, you're going to have kids, you're going to have more bills, and so you'll be comfortable to taper down your savings so you can pay for those things. That's all I have for you. These are pretty simple items that anyone can commit to and doesn't need a crazy amount of financial knowledge to understand. Keep that in mind as you are exiting school and entering the workforce, and know that you making these decisions now at 20, 60-year-old you or 50-year-old you or even 40-year-old you will be so incredibly pleased with what you've decided to do. As always, I believe investing changes lives, and the only thing I want to do talking to y'all is express what I'm passionate about, of course, but to foster participation in the public markets for everyday Americans. I'll see you in the next one.